Millions of families and professionals will touch the child welfare system this year alone. It's the same every year, and this is the truth. Our system is complicated, it's confusing, and it's difficult to navigate. I'm your host, Shanelle Dupree, and this is Navigating the Child Welfare System Well. Because I don't know anyone who has navigated a system confused and has achieved the best possible outcome. And the outcomes are not just simple metrics. We're talking about families, we're talking about communities, and we're talking about generations. So hug your loved ones a little bit tighter and let's dive in to gain clarity and understanding to navigate the child welfare system well. Welcome, Kenisha. Thank you so much for joining this podcast. We are here today to just dive into the work that you do and who you help and just gather some insights about how to make our system work better because you have some very unique positionings and perspectives regarding the child welfare system. So I know that you are currently working within the system as a consultant and you're working with child welfare agencies, nonprofits, and communities to dismantle systematic barriers. You're building inclusive leadership pipelines and you're integrating cultural responsiveness into practice and policy. But although you are nationally doing this, you literally came up in this space. And so you have really a reflective type of perspective. And would just love to hear your voice and what you do and how you help people.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And when you first launched your podcast, I was so excited, right? I was like, this is going to be such awesome conversations that we're going to be hearing in this space. So, yes, my name's Kenisha. I am from Michigan, so Midwest person. And my experience is a little bit different because, when we talked about lived experience, the topic really usually just goes to, oh, the child experienced foster care and then or they were adopted or guardianship. And sometimes we don't talk a lot about the preservation piece. And for me, mine was really centered in that preservation piece, failed preservation, but the preservation piece of growing up in an abused, neglected household, but not having um like having CPS in the house all the time, doing all the things, but they never removed us when we should have been removed. So I don't know, like services maybe here or there, but like the abuse still continued until, I mean, I still get uh psychological things here or there, but physical until till a teenager for sure. And then some other things on top of that. So we don't talk a lot about the folks who don't necessarily get out, but still like have experienced all of that, right? So,
This is going to be so interesting and such a
hmm
unique and important
hmm
perspective that you're able to talk about now. So I just
yeah,
want to kind of put that out there that a lot of people have
hmm
experienced this, but not a lot of people are able to articulate and actually speak about growing up in a home that you now reflectively know was abusive, and
yeah,
then being able to like articulate and provide space and gems to improve it for the next generation.
yeah, yeah. And then another caveat to that is that I'm Black biracial and I grew up in an all white home with no access to my Black culture. So my mom is white, and then my dad was Black, but I didn't have access to any of that side of the family. Um, my mom had remarried, like a white man had a couple of children that were the same age as my sister and I. My sister is also biracial, but she is very ambiguously racial when we come to when we talk about skin color, and we have this conversation all the time because people look at us, they're like, "You're blood sisters," and we're like, "Yeah, we have different dad, but same mom, and we have some similar features." But her dad is black also, but she just a lot of folks assume her to be passing. So we had very different experiences in certain spaces because of that. And we talk about that now as we both embrace what each side looks like. Now, growing up, my mom always said, that when my dad had passed, that my whole family was dead. She's like, your grandma's dead, your aunt's dead, like you don't have any of that. And that really weighed on me a lot because I was like, okay, well, I don't have any access to my culture. I grew up in this all white town. I didn't learn about my history. I didn't learn about anything really outside of MLK and Rosa Parks and the stuff that they whitewashingly teach in history class. And in my 30s, in my early 30s, um I was really curious. I was like, I have my dad's death certificate. I wonder if I can do some family tree connection and put some things together. And I was able to find an address for my grandmother. So I wrote a letter and then she called me. And I was like, "What?" And yeah,
Wow.
so they're like, "We've been looking for you for 34 years. We know everything that had went on over those times when you graduated college, when you had got married, when you had children." I was like, "How'd you know that?" And they're like, "Your mom told us." And I was like, "What?" So I
My
confronted,
my
yes,
mouth is
yes,
open.
yes, 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 yes. So I was like, "What do you
Wow.
mean?" And so I confronted my mother about that, and she was like, "I never said all that, but what?" Just very narcissistic stuff, right? And so, but then, so for the first time around 34, I got to meet my family for the first time. So for the last 3, 4 years, it's been such a interesting ride. I went to my first Black family reunion, and
Whew.
I have
It's
like
an experience.
it was an experience. I was like, okay, okay. It was a whole thing. We had
Mhm.
activities planned and all the stuff. So we're
Matching
going
t-shirts.
matching t-shirts, and it was like the 44th one or something. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. So we're going on a cruise this next summer. So that's our next one. We're doing a cruise for our reunion. So that's gonna be fun. But
I love it.
yeah, so now I have and I'm the youngest child. So my grandma had 11 siblings, and my grandma had 3 children, but I'm the youngest, like cousin.
Okay.
But my grandma was also one of the youngest children, so I have a zillion cousins, but I'm like one of the youngest. So like I have cousins. I'm like, wait, are you my cousin or my auntie? I feel like you're my auntie.
Yeah.
But so, and I look up to them like that, but I was like, wait, you're my cousin. So just like
Yeah.
learning that dynamic has been really interesting. So it was a little bit of a different journey to get there. And how I got into this work is I was like really interested in psychology and stuff. And I got a chance to start working at after I had my master's at this point, but after I did that, I was like got hired into a youth group home for girls, right? A residential. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into at that point, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first like child welfare experience for a couple of years, and
That's
I
a lot. That's a
it
lot.
was a
Yeah.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still connected to some of those girls that come
Hmm.
back and they're like, "Miss Kenisha, like, can we ask you questions?" Blah, blah. And they're full adults now, right? So that was my first experience. And then I got connected into more directly into adoption. So I started doing adoption recruitment for unmatched kids for who had been like unconnected to a family for what well over a year. And then I got connected to international and domestic adoption, which is really cool. I still do that here a little bit of there, but then I got into adoption and foster care and licensing, and over the last 15 years I've really done probably every part of child welfare except for CPS. which is interesting. But I've done all the parts, training. I did policy and legislation, of course, DEI and anti-racism work. And now I'm just in a space of, it's really cool. I'm in the space of doing like my consulting with training and leadership and equity work. And then I'm also doing some contract with a state with a tech company helping the overhaul of their SACWA system. So
Oh,
I come in
yeah.
as a subject matter expert and,
Hmm.
help the tech team say, this is going to help it be easier for the new workers to be able to do, or for the workers to be able to input their information into the system. This is not how, this is how I've done it in the past, stuff like that, which has been really cool. So to see a fruition of, oh, like I got to help build this is really
Yeah.
neat. So,
Well, it's really cool what's happening in child welfare in that through the Family First
mhm,
federal funding, states have access now to really upgrade their systems. And
yeah,
so, just here in Kansas, our systems, I mean, Kenisha, it's
yeah,
almost like embarrassing at
yeah,
times how
yeah,
archaic it was. And
yeah,
so the fact that there's going to be like this overhaul is amazing, but I mean, it's taking years to
yes,
develop because
it's years.
there's so many subject matter experts that are
Mhm.
needed. So it's very cool that you're a part of that process.
Yeah, the state I'm working alongside right now, the system is 43 years old. So as you can imagine, they and I went through an overhaul with the state of Michigan, but they're doing another one right now for CCWIS for everybody for that judgment. And then so yeah, it's I mean, I've been on the project for almost a year and we've just started barely building things for like we're starting with ICWA stuff and then going
Yeah.
like I'm just on like the permanency team and then we have
Yeah.
all the other teams and it's a lot.
It
So
is.
it
It
takes
is.
a lot of people to build a system. So if you're in one of those
Mhm.
states, be patient because I was always like, what's taking so long? And I was like, now I get it. Like
Yeah, there's
now I get
literally
it.
a kajabillion pieces trying to
Yes.
work together.
Yes. And now and there's so many steps and you have to do like
Hmm.
and tech is so I've learned so much about tech and agile work and I was like I love being in the tech space and seeing what we can do to build and improve and make things faster and also of course I'm coming in with that how can we make this equitable are we asking all the
Yes.
right questions like
Yes.
making sure that we're hitting all of those parts so
Yeah, how
yeah
how not to build a system where bias is baked in, how to recognize,
exactly
yeah,
exactly
those
yeah
those different aspects of it. So with that, you have a very interesting lens and
Mhm.
perspective. And so, how what would you say is some of the biggest challenges regarding the child welfare system? So maybe you can give us like an answer when you first came into the system and begin seeing things, and then perhaps now, what would you say is like one of the biggest challenges?
Yeah, when I first came into the system, or when I first experienced working alongside the folks, I was always like, it's the parents' fault, right? Because that's what we had always thought. Well, the parents didn't need do what they need to do, so it was their fault. They they were the abusers. They were the folks that did the things to lead to their children being removed. But that's not that's not it at all, right? There's all these other factors that come into it, about services and equitability and um, this framework of surveillance rather than support and how all of that is deeply rooted in systemic racism and classism and historical trauma. Like this system was designed what hundreds of years ago, decades ago, and it still carries we still see these policies every day that policed poverty and really push back against culture. So I'm actually doing I'm very close to being done with my PhD, which is super exciting. Yay, yay, yay,
Congratulations.
yay. I just turned in like a second draft of my proposal yesterday, actually, but I'm studying how evidence-based coaching can influence the decision making and cultural responsiveness among child
Mm,
welfare professionals. So my if you're hearing me out here and you've done programs like APLD, formerly known as MPLD,
okay.
or UJMA, or any of those other Chapin Hall, or any of those other leadership programs, I'm going to have a survey coming your way because I want to find out that how are these programs really helping or hindering our decision making and cultural responsiveness when it comes to the work that we're doing. And
Hmm.
I found that we can't change outcomes until we change how we think, right? So some of
Yeah.
these programs are rooted in it, some of them are not. And the coaching really allows us to slow down and recognize and reshape our biases when we're having conversations with families, right? So um I know I feel like I wasn't removed and I fell through the cracks a little bit, and I know what
Yeah.
it feels to like not be seen in this system. So
Mm,
I think the challenge is not just policy but lack of resources, and that folks get into this everyday mode that sometimes they lose sight of the humanity of it all, of we're
hmm.
people, we're persons, we're working with families, it's their lives, and we
Yeah.
have to have empathy for that. So
You
I think
know,
that's where I'm at right
it's
now.
yeah, it's something because I'm just thinking about like so I'm really big on
Hmm.
history and that we've been here
Hmm.
before and kind of thinking back and when I think about like the pendulum of child welfare, there
Hmm.
was a time when there were children were basically, languishing in the child welfare system. So they were spending years upon years upon years in the system. And family preservation was like the thing. That was the thing that
Hmm.
folks were wanting to do and needing to do. But then we were having, again, families that were involved in the system for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And so when I think about your family and your experience, it sounds like you were kind of caught up in that space, that kind of
Hmm.
perpetual family preservation space where perhaps there needed to be something else that was done that
Yeah.
could interrupt the harm that was happening. So kind of thinking reflectively, what would you have wanted to happen?
That's a really hard question to ask because I've learned so much and overcome so much and became so persistent from what I went through, right?
Hmm.
I've the resilience I've built against that. Like, I have imagined, what if I was removed and placed in another family? Would have been another white family? Would have like me been separated from my sister? And we have this bond
Hmm.
from going through all of this stuff. So I'm not saying that it was the best decision, but I also am saying it shaped how I've made and done my decision making and shaped my path of wanting to do better for my own kids as
Yeah.
as a parent, right? And learning from that. I've actually been estranged from my maternal family for about 13 years now. So the only person I really talk to is my sister and my aunt. And um, like for me, that was a big step to put that wall up and say, my mental health can't do this anymore. I'm not
Hmm.
being gaslit anymore, all of those things. So that's a really complex
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
Now I'm like, well, what can we do now to just make sure that it doesn't continue to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And the
Yeah.
reality that these decisions are hard
Yeah.
and the effects of it, like there's gonna be an impact either way. And it's
Hmm.
just how do we reduce harm? How do we reduce harm? Because
Hmm.
it feels like both options are harmful, like they're hard
Yeah.
and they're difficult. So no, I I appreciate that. And just kind of thinking through how you are now contributing to the space. What is something that you're most proud of? Like, you built a lot of different things. You've helped a lot of different organizations and individuals. What's something that you're really proud of?
Um, I mean, a couple of things. I have my book that I wrote, and then
Mhm.
She Persisted, which is like my memoir background to all of this journey and how I got here today. And then I actually am shopping around another one right now that I have ready to go called Reimagining Equity, and it talks about moving from fixing families to fixing like the root of the condition and the harm in the family. So what legislators can change laws and social workers and judges and foster parents, they can shift cultures and communities, they can do this, but we have to like do everything together, and we need brave leaders like you and all of our friends out there that are going to be willing to sort of like dismantle and then rebuild, very
Mhm.
similar to what Dorothy Roberts talks about, about pretty much abolishing the system, even though I don't think that's the best. Like there's different ways that we could go about that, right? Like if we
Right.
get rid of everything, burn it all down and start over again. No, we can't do that. But I
Mhm.
think that we can override override some things and start again. So I
Yeah,
would say definitely proud that I've been able to merge my lived experience and my academic research and my professional voice all together. And I've definitely had the honor of mentoring tons of folks, being mentored by amazing people, and just really proud to have helped organizations build their next steps and their strategic journey. So it's hard to pick one thing, but
yeah,
I know that there has been like change from work I've done.
for sure.
And I'm proud of those spaces. And people know when Kenisha is coming to the table that I'm going to bring space of being an accountability partner and
Mhm.
having a space where truth and trauma can sort of coexist together, and normalizing the conversation about race and bias and resilience. So
For sure. How have you been in doing your work in the climate that we're in for 2025?
yeah, really interesting on that one, right? Because it depends on who you're working with.
Yeah.
As we know, at the federal level, there's a lot that we can't say, or we have to reword in a different way, that we're still doing the work. I've been taking a lot of that targeted universal approach. And targeted universalism is when we are working towards uh, overcoming the problem. So we're putting these strategic plans in place, but then we know that in the end, it does focus on like disparate and marginalized populations, but
Yeah.
it's just a different way of going about it. So I've been really leaning into that. University or USC Berkeley, I think, had coined that term, and they have like a lot of training on it and everything that's been really interesting. But
Interesting.
I've gotten pretty lucky that I've been still doing state connection work, and a lot of
Mhm.
states are still able to make that decision for certain spaces on whether they want to have the conversations, but they're still making sure that's in baked into the things we do. So especially here in Michigan, I'm still doing work with like youth empowerment and things like that. And I have some trainings coming up on engagement with families, and I have a whole anti-racism parenting training series
Mm.
that I've still been doing. And I've been doing that with cities. I've been doing that with some companies. I've
Yeah,
been working with camps, like so a lot of different avenues outside of just like that federal path that are they can't use federal money, but they still are wanting to do the work. So
Kanisha, and that's what I found that
Yeah.
for me, it feels like the people who are still doing this work are the people who really see the value in it.
Yes.
And it's no longer, it's not performative. It's if you really want to do this work, deciding to do it in 2025, yep, that's brave.
Hmm.
But you're right. I mean, just because, and when I talk, I say all the time, the federal government is no longer willing to fund it, but that doesn't mean that it's not legal. Like
Yeah.
equity is still legal. And
Hmm.
so anyway, that's interesting. I just wanted to kind of hear how you've been able to
Yeah.
move forward in the work this year. So yeah, so what do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, right now, that's that's been a struggle. Um, I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
I have been pushing through doing this work and then having some big like life altering changes with family and with my health and stuff that have made it sort of hard, but work is my outlet. School
Hmm.
is my outlet. Like trying to do all of this is like what I will put my energy into. So if you're asking me when I'm super anxious, like maybe what I do, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go work on my book a little bit or
Yeah.
my
Yeah. That
dissertation
but
or
that's
something
also
like
like
I
it's a
don't
creative
it is.
outlet. Like
It
that's one of the
is.
things.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of reading.
Okay.
Well, like my vision's not been the greatest right now, but I have an eye disorder that's taking my eyesight. So this is a new challenge for me
For sure.
that just trying how to maneuver and do things. But I've been on this escape kick of not reading nonfiction and reading like it's it's probably a little deep, but it's this author. Her name is Dr. Lucinda Berry, and she used to be a trauma psychologist. And now her
Mhm.
book she writes is just like very, very traumatic and deep and
And
twists
you're
and
reading all of
turns.
this.
And I'm going through her repertoire right now and it's wild. So I'm like, this is a great escape. So I'm that person who's reading about the worst trauma possible,
Yeah.
probably as an escape.
Yeah.
But I like to do yoga and
Hmm.
meditate. Mindfulness
Yeah.
is really important. And my partner gets me to the gym or encourages me. And once I get there, it's not bad. It's the getting
Yeah.
there, right?
For sure. For sure.
So
For sure.
yeah, being with my kids when I can and doing some stuff with them. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. Lots of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah,
lots
for sure. I
lots
mean,
of
with
therapy.
life-altering changes,
Hmm.
you have to recalibrate life and recalibrate your mind and all those
Yeah,
different things. And like I said offline, I am a person of faith, and so you are in my prayers for sure.
thank you.
What I'll ask, and perhaps what we can, my last question, and then I'm gonna ask you to share any final thoughts. But
Yeah,
what do you want for people within the system to know? So whether it's
yeah.
mandated reporters, whether it's, I call them helpers, whether it's the parents and the children who are involved in the system at whatever part, what do you want for them to
Mhm.
know?
For the folks who are connected on the professional side, I definitely want to say to them, like lean into your vulnerability and don't take the safe and judgmental route of helping families, right? Like lean into that understanding your implicit bias, lean into wanting to really provide the resources to the family to help them stay together. And if not, lean into really making sure that you're giving the youth a space when it comes to being matched with a new family, right? And not just saying, this is who I'm gonna go drop you off here, you're being adopted by them. Like
Right.
I have heard that before and it's a horror story. So and for parents and children, just knowing that you're not your case file, like
Mhm.
your worst moment in your life doesn't define who you are. So, I talk about in my book how I grew up in chaos and feeling unseen, and just so they know, like you're not invisible. Even if you think that the world has stopped seeing you, there's people here, right? Like us
Yeah.
that really care about you, and we're working every day to build something better. So don't lose hope.
Mm,
I love when I get to to really talk to kiddos about that, and then also teaching them to advocate for their voice in their room to make sure that they're fighting.
mm,
Um, but you know, back to the professional side, I've just understanding the weight of their power, because we make big decisions for families, like
yeah.
life changing decisions for families,
Yeah.
whether it's the initial call, whether it's, you know, termination, whatever it is. We make that decision, and we have to be sure that we're making it in an equitable manner. So um yeah, don't judge people, lean into the curiosity, into the helpfulness and the hopefulness, and we're not going to save the world, right?
Yeah.
But we can make big changes.
For
Mhm,
sure. No,
mhm.
I love that perspective, Kenisha. I love how you are infusing hope with the families that you're
Mhm.
serving. I love how you're reminding helpers of their power and the weight of
Yeah.
their job. Because we can literally get in a space where we just treat this as like any other thing when the
Yeah.
decisions that we make can have like literally generational changes for an
Yes.
entire family, which I believe is an entire community. And so, how can people work with you? What does that look like?
Yeah. So my website is www.kenishacoon.com. Super easy to find. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. But I do keynote speaking and training. So keynote for conferences, whatever space it might be in, and leadership or equity work. And I do workshops and trainings and strategic planning. Um, I say, I can work with your agency one on one to help develop a plan on how we get some of these policy updates and changes, or, really looking at all of your systems change work with that equitable lens, and what some of that change looks like for you. Or I do also like leadership coaching or one-on-one coaching with folks too, that really just want to take their own personal journey further. uh,
Mm,
I really love doing that too, and that's very individualized. So there's so many different avenues. If it's something that you've been thinking about, I've helped start ERGs. I've employee resource groups for different folks, and yeah, like I've done qualitative and quantitative research and all that kind of stuff. So it really, if you just want to go on a path of building a more equitable space, right, and really leaning into your full self of making big change for child welfare, like I can help in that.
I love it. I love
Hmm.
it. Any final thoughts? And we are going to link
Yeah.
your information in the show notes. But any
Perfect.
final thoughts you want to share?
I just really want to put out there to, um, whether you're a parent listening, a youth listening, a professional listening, that it's just so important that you lean into your full authentic self when you're in these spaces. Like as a youth and a parent, continue to lean into your authentic self and speak up, and make space for yourself at that table that I know that you're not even invited to sometimes, but pushing through that to get there. And as a professional too, especially I'm gonna say as a professional of color, especially women of color. I do a lot of women of color leadership training right now too, and making sure that you're supporting your peers in that sense, because there's a lot of different biases and red tape that goes up against some of the work that we want to do. But being a person of color in leadership in this space is so tough, because the system was not built to uh, protect people of color, right? So
Mhm.
we're trying to fight and break. break away from that, and it's really hard. So keep moving forward, keep reaching for your dreams, and really leaning into that resilience and persistence to keep going.
Thank you, Kenisha.
Mhm.
And again, thank you for just sharing your perspective on how to build a better system and what people, regardless of their place and positioning, the power that they have and how they can actually
Mhm.
make an impact. And so I know this will help someone. And
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hey there, thank you for listening. I want to pick your brain. What are some ways that we can help those involved in the child welfare system navigate it better? Share your ideas, your thoughts, what you've done, what you've heard done, and let's build a better system.